Hi, I'm Aaron Raw, and you're watching Atheist Edge.
But that part of it, I didn't really, adopt. It was just the people that were the facilitators of the program. That's what they believed, and they kind of just did that.
All right, so
But
we're talking
this
about.
was one of the panels.
Courtney is showing me her trip to India is called
Yeah.
Auroville.
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 A-U-R-O-Ville. Yeah.
And it's in this book, Pulling Back the Green Curtain. There's some references to it.
Yeah, we're probably gonna do a video another time where I can look into it.
Yeah, we're not gonna go in depth.
All I have is like my experience of visiting it, but apparently there's a lot more to that story. So
my experience of it from reading and all the research I've done, it's a complete cult atmosphere, communal,
and
closed off.
Yeah, and that does not surprise me at all.
Money making, agenda driven.
Yeah.
So
there
at the time you had no idea you were.
Yeah, no, yeah. And there was.
You were there 6 days.
Yeah, and we were just visiting. We weren't like looking at being members or anything. But there was a very protective atmosphere of not letting people, I guess, criticize. I don't know. I just remember there being a very a protectiveness of the people, that they felt like you had to have special permission to visit, not with the intent of joining the group. We were visiting as a group to learn from it, but not to join it. And so for that reason, we had to get special permission to visit. And I think, that might have something to do with journalists or something like that, which is also...
all media.
Yeah, scary. But what was striking to me was that the community itself, it was filled with people from all around the world, and the community was really westernized, and it was in the middle of South Pondicherry, and outside of that you had India, which we had already backpacked through India for, I guess, more than half of our trip, and we knew what India was like. It was chaotic. It was horrific at times. There were homeless people everywhere. Everyone was either asking you for money or trying to scam you into giving them something, charging you 3 times the price because of your skin. And
Jesus.
And it's, but it wasn't about us Western girls being victims of India. No. It was about the people who live here, the people who are part of this community. That was really, really hard for me, and some people wanted to walk away from that experience thinking that it would fix itself and it's the way it should be and whatever, but I was really struck, and some people that I went with were very, very struck with this sense of urgency to make it better. And there was a guy that we met, David, who was just starting to create an emergency response system. He was a American, what do you call that? People who are in the ambulance.
Non-government NGO?
People who are in the ambulance.
Oh, EMT?
EMT. He was a licensed EMT in America. He had come to not India, but Kathmandu, Nepal. We also stayed there.
Oh, did you go to Nepal too?
I did, yeah.
All right, I've been to 43 countries. There's still 4 I still have not gone to. I want to.
Yeah.
India, Nepal,
yeah.
Czech Republic, and Spain.
Okay, yeah. I'd love to be able to say that one day. There's so many countries that I have to count on my hand how many I haven't been to. That sounds amazing.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so we went there for 6 days as well. At the end of our trip, we went last minute because we were supposed to go to Darjeeling in the mountains, but there were...
Is that where they make the tea? Darjeeling?
They make tea everywhere. They make chai everywhere.
There's a Darjeeling tea.
Yeah, they make it, yeah.
Okay, anyway, sorry.
But in, we were supposed to go to Darjeeling, but there were violent strikes going on, strikes against transportation. And the group that went ahead of us that was based out of New Mexico instead of Dallas, that group, their public bus was attacked by like people throwing stones, and one of the girls like had a stone come through and she was bloody and glass and blah. But so they were already over there, and they, beelined it to the border. And so we got the message while we were in Auroville, and the hotels in Darjeeling were calling, telling us not to come to Darjeeling. So we got last minute visas and went up to Nepal for 6 days. And then that was the end of our trip. So after Auroville, we made like the 3-day journey back to America.
I didn't think I would ever have to say this, but you should have just stayed put in the cult for a while.
Well, that Auroville, we were
you
kind
really
of,
have to read up on Auroville.
We were kind of creeped out by it.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, but we'll make another thing about that, because I don't.
We could probably do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, sure. I want to look into it.
It's bad.
But yeah, I got to ride a moped there that was powered by vegetable oil. And you would buy like a little water bottle that had
biodiesel?
That was filled with vegetable oil, and the little tanks, the gas tank said vegetable oil. It was cool.
Yeah, it smells like French fries when you're driving it.
I don't remember, but that was the only like motorized like bike I've ever done, and it was really, really fun. But Auroville was where I got lost too, and I had a little breakdown. I was on a regular bicycle, and the group got ahead of me, and I got lost. And luckily it wasn't like in the middle of India. It was in Auroville, which was this like this
cult compound
community. Yeah, and so, but there was a time that I was lost, and that was terrifying. And when I finally caught up with the group,
just look for that big giant golden ball in the middle.
No, I was within that community, and I was looking for my group. So I probably would have been able to find my way a lot easier than if I was in the middle of South Pondicherry outside of that community. But I found my group, and like I had a breakdown, like because I had this whole nother culture shock hit me, and I just was.
How old were you?
I was 19.
19.
Yeah, and I had always lived at home, and all that. So
my oldest daughter's 19. She's in Austin right now at a Camp Quest sleepover.
Ooh, cool.
And
I didn't know that was like for older too.
Well, okay, she's a counselor now.
Okay, yeah.
Any 18 and older, you're a counselor. Mm-hmm. She was a Phoenix, the Phoenix Project in Camp Quest. It's Camp Quest. It's a secular camp. If you're 16,
secular, not atheist, secular.
Yeah,
big difference.
I like that. Okay, my daughters have been going to this for 5 years straight, and the first year I took them, my youngest daughter, she's 16 now, so she was 11 when we started going. I dropped her off on a Saturday. Wednesday, they had a thing called Socrates Cafe, where you meet and you get in a circle in the cafeteria and you talk about philosophy. And she realized, hey, all these people are atheists, just like my daddy. It took her 4 days to realize that
There you go.
I was surrounded by atheists too.
Yeah.
No one's judging me.
Yeah.
That's how non-judgmental they are.
That's good.
Anyway.
Yeah, but I think I was talking.
So you had that huge breakdown in Auroville.
I did. Yeah, but there are so many things that I could talk about India. I climbed a mountain, which was really transformative for me, and I really worked through a lot of my personal issues about confidence in my ability and stuff like that, which stemmed from learning disabilities and all that. So I gave a speech about it, a couple, and it was part of the program that at the end of the program you graduate, and then you give a speech to like friends and family about kind of your journey and who you are today because of the program, because it is very transformative. And I walked away from that experience, having learned that I was capable and free and beautiful, and so that was part of it. So it was amazing. But all these things were things that I had not believed about myself before. So it's very liberating when you go through a program like that. So that was that whole program. I learned all this stuff. I was still a believer when I went to India.
This whole time.
Yeah, I did all this stuff, and I was a believer. And then
surrounded by Hindus.
Right, and going into temples and having the red dot put on your. It was really beautiful.
The significance of that?
No, we went. Each temple kind of represented a different god, and so we went in and one of them was I don't know what it was for, but there was a guy that just walked around with a tray and just kind of put these little powders on your face.
Not all little girls get it.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it was like a white line here, and then a red line here, and yeah, it was. I don't.
They
know.
all
I don't
had
know
a
what it
different
means.
significance.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You were talking about people with disabilities. I'm just going to hit you.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go
well,
ahead.
That's a whole nother part of it. It helped me to kind of transcend this cycle that often happens with people with disabilities, where you only feel that you're capable of so much compared to everyone else, and so I was struggling with that since forever.
Yeah.
Because I was always given less, smaller assignments and more time than everyone else, and I felt like I couldn't ever catch up to everyone else.
Because of what?
Because of my ADHD. Yeah.
Is this a first heard for us?
Maybe for this one.
Yeah, okay.
I
This
don't
is
know.
the first time we've heard this?
I'm very open about it.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Have
the
you
first
been
time it's come
medicated
up.
for it? Did your parents medicate you for it?
Yeah.
Well, this is a whole.
Yeah.
I was about to say a whole nother. This is a completely different episode, probably.
Yeah, no, that's a whole other thing. But basically, I grew up with this sense that I wasn't capable of anything, really, of accomplishing anything. I thought that I would not measure up to everyone else who had been doing more than me in less time, and I felt like I didn't really know what the diagnosis was per se. I just knew there was something wrong with me. I knew there was something missing, and that everyone else seemed to have a better idea of their surroundings and how to live and who they were, and they had this sense that I didn't have, and so just generally, so I developed this kind of complex that I still work through all the time, but I don't think I would be anywhere near where I am today if it weren't for this program, because I believed that I was not going to succeed with college. I didn't think that I was going to graduate. I didn't think I would be successful in the workforce, because again, I'm surrounded by people who are better than me at everything, and I don't know how I can catch up. There's always going to be
people better than you.
Yeah, but
you overcame
so this
it.
So this was just my This was my
medicinally.
Well, no. I wasn't. My parents tried medication when I was really young, Ritalin, and they didn't. It took my personality away. It turned me into a zombie. And so they took me off of it, and they just tried all this other woo stuff. They tried staying away from red dye. They tried magnets. They tried.
You to Auroville.
No. That was a whole other independent thing.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, they tried protein in the middle of the day. We tried magnet necklaces and inner soles in my shoes. All kinds of random things. Yeah, it was. And when I was a kid, it was just like, okay, whatever. But nothing seemed to, change anything. So eventually we just didn't really talk about it. And I always had accommodations in school. And so I was part of 504. And that's like a program where you sit down with your teachers and the school counselor and your parents and you decide what accommodations you need for your specific case, which is awesome because it makes it specific to you. Because so many, I guess without that, you'd have just this general, you're labeled as this kind of kid and we're going to put you in this whole nother class with all these kids that are just like you, but they're not, they're individual. But anyway, so I had, extended time on tests. I had extra explanations. I had a tutorial place I could go to anytime and get help. But because of that, it was never really clearly stated to me that I wasn't limited with these accommodations. And it was never explained to me at all that the workforce at the time that I'm getting into it has accommodations for me as well. That I thought that accommodations were only going to happen in school, and that when I got out into the workforce, I wouldn't have those, and I would have to fend for myself. And that's why I felt like I wasn't capable of doing that. And so I found out way later that I had accommodations in work. It wasn't until like 6-7 years later, while I was already in.
Damn.
And I was already struggling with my disability and having it affect my work.
Did you feel it was a disability?
Yeah, it is.
You were totally aware of it?
Yeah.
Do you feel it now?
Oh, yeah.
Have you transcended it?
No.
Really?
It's
Is it still affecting you?
Yeah, it's ingrained in my personality. It's never going to go away.
I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Have you suppressed it?
No, people that know me, they can tell.
You totally suppressed it.
I forget things.
Is that a symptom?
I'm not, yeah. There's a lot of symptoms.
Could that be a symptom of something else? Or are you just attributing it to
Could be. But, okay, the way that you get diagnosed is that you have a set of criteria. You have to meet at least a certain amount of it. So you can't just say, oh, well, I'm this and I'm that. And it has to be consistent. It has to be consistent over time. It has to be consistent across situations.
Yeah.
And it has to be causing a detriment to your functionality. And it has to be...
You feel that it is?
And it has to be causing you distress.
And you feel that is too?
Yes. So
Good
Lord. That's what happens. Those last two things, that's for any diagnosis.
I just don't see it.
Well,
you're either really good at keeping it down,
yeah,
or
but the thing about ADHD is that if it's something that I'm passionate about, then I can function at a higher level than the average person.
Yeah, sometimes it's a good thing.
It's what they call genius prone.
Yeah.
And there are certain jobs in the workforce that work with an ADHD brain and not against it. The problem is that our education system, the way it works against it. And that's why there's a lot of behavior issues with ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADD, but ADHD is now the blanket term. They changed the definition. So now there's different types within ADHD. So I'm ADHD inattentive type, which means I'm ADD, basically. But the official diagnosis now is ADHD. But anyway, so I started medication in Maine in college. And that wasn't until I was...
You got a phone call?
Yeah, that wasn't until I was 23. And it was like night and day. And I went from always being the really sweet, nice girl who means well but isn't reliable and doesn't learn things as well. One day will know what she's doing and be totally confident, and other days just completely forget all her training. And I really, really struggled. And I had a very awful experience when I first moved to Maine, working for this company.
What city?
I lived in Mechanic Falls, in Maine, but I worked for a company.
I was in Bangor. Is it near Bangor?
Bangor is
Banger's
like 3.5 hours north. But I had such a hard time. Again, before I knew there were accommodations, I was trying to just ignore my diagnosis, and I was treated poorly when I revealed my diagnosis, and it changed the entire dynamic, and I learned firsthand why it's important to bring the diagnosis itself to HR and to have accommodations made through HR and have the accommodations brought down to the managers without knowledge of the diagnosis. And it's not necessary for...
that gets really complicated.
Yeah, well, it's not very necessary for all jobs. It's not necessary for everyone.
HR knows what your diagnosis is.
Right, so you bring documentation to them.
Bring it down to your supervisors who don't know what your diagnosis is.
Right.
And they try to put you in the right kind of job description.
No. All they do, you already have the job.
Uh-huh.
All they do is enforce the accommodations that have been brought down from HR. That's all they have to deal with. But the problem was that before I knew that there was an avenue like that for me, all I knew to do was to say, hey, I'm sorry, I have this thing and I don't know what to do about it, but I want you to know. And that's all I knew to do.
Is it offensive for me to just say, I just don't see any of this?
No.
That you're, like earlier we had an episode with
but
transgender,
again, you
and she's been a female for 25 years now, and is it offensive for me to say that you pass as a female? I didn't even know you were.
That's a question for them,
right?
For her,
right?
I've heard that is.
She said no,
but
I didn't even know she was
used
to be a male. It took me a year to find out.
I think it depends on the person.
It's taken me this long. I've known you for that long, and I've never known.
But you only know me in a social context. We've never
spoke at length about it.
Well, no, I'm not a coworker of yours.
Yeah, I've known Brandy just as long as I've known you.
Students and people I work with, they can tell because they see me in a context where I have to be reliable. I have to be, it's, they can see it.
They can.
Managers that I've had always, I'm different. My brain works differently. I struggle with things that everyone else is fine with.
You distress even to this day?
Yeah.
Wow.
I have breakdowns. I have total breakdowns.
I never knew.
And like my jobs that I've had are like the busy work menial stuff, which is fine. It's respectable. It's fine. But for me, that type of work works against my brain, and it makes me never measure up to anyone around me. And in a very clear way, my performance never measures up to anyone else's performance, and it's consistent, and it never stops. And so I've really struggled with confidence in my ability when I'm constantly getting feedback that I'm not enough compared to everyone else. But
that feeling of inadequacy just has to grate on you over time.
It's constant. But in a job where it's something that I'm passionate about, in a different type of work, I may completely thrive and do better than everyone else. And so this, like, that's why it's taken me a while to seek PhD. Part of the reason that I want to get it is because I never thought I could. I never thought I was capable of graduating college. I never thought I was capable of being on the dean's list and getting really, really good grades. But what was different about college was that I made my own schedule, and I was able to do things that worked with my brain that helped me to get along. And I would record lectures and play them back and catch all the lecture, because when I'm in a lecture, I'm never going to hear all of it. I'm never going to retain all of it. I have to record it and play it back, because my brain is going to trail off, because I can't keep it engaged even if I want to. And so once it trails off, I may not realize I'm gone for a while. I come back and then I'm lost. And math was difficult for that reason, because it builds on everything that you've learned before. And if I didn't quite get everything in the foundation, it was awful. But math in college, I was at the top of my class because I did every work problem. I made sure I got everything. And so
attention to detail is not a problem.
No, yeah, that's great for me. And so for that reason, like, there are certain qualities that ADHD people, as a whole, are usually better at.
There are some positives.
Yeah, and so that's why some people don't talk about it as a disability, because it can be a strength. And I
have an OCD where I've only been late 4 times in my life to anything. I can count them. I'm 49. I've been late 4 times.
That's insane.
Ever. Today we did Metroplex Atheist did a trash pickup in Northwestern Hills, North Texas area.
We adopted a highway.
We've had this highway adopted for a long time, and we were supposed to show up at 8. I showed up at like fucking 7:20, and that's late for me. Yeah, I really, it's a problem.
That's why you show up to the socials at like 4:30.
I'm always the first one there.
Yeah.
No, I show up at 1500, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
I show up like 2-3 hours early.
Jeez.
And I just sit there and I study my shit. But I got my thumb up my ass most of the time. It's a problem, but I can turn it into an advantage.
Yeah. But so, all this to say, basically, that with my condition, I had this complex of capability. And part of the workshop was doing a fire walk, and that was mostly why I did it. Yeah.
Sounds a little woo-woo.
It is, no, totally, yeah. But it really, it was pretty transformative for me. But part of it, well, more what I talked about in my talk was when I climbed a mountain. We went to Tiruvannamalai.
We're already live. So you were climbing the mountain in India?
Yeah,
okay.
so every month in Tiruvannamalai, they have a festival to celebrate the full moon.
Mm-hmm.
And during that thing, you have a pilgrimage around Shiva Mountain. Shiva's one of their gods, one of their main ones.
That was the god of destruction.
Yeah, and the parent.
She's the one that destroys the world, the universe after every 50,000 years or something.
Okay, I just know it's the it's the parent of Ganesh, I think. So when I was
Brahma is the one that sleeps for 50,000 years and then wakes out. Sorry, go ahead.
So when I was when we were in Tiruvannamalai, we happened to be there during this festival.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a 14K walk around the mountain, and we were told a little bit in that a lot of people, part of that journey and that pilgrimage is to take your shoes off and walk it barefoot. So I did that, and I walked barefoot most of it after I found out. So it was a 14K walk around the mountain through the city, and then the next morning, we were given the opportunity to climb to the top of the mountain, and I was not a mountain climber. I had never climbed a mountain in my life, and so it was 2 hours up and 2 hours back down, obviously, and it was just this big thing, this physical human thing that I didn't think I could do, but I just decided that it's what I wanted to do. So I struggled with it, and I had a couple of people with me that were they had experienced mountain climbing, and they were very, very good. And we had a guide because you get lost, who was guiding us through this path through the mountain. And what was significant about that was that it became, partway through, it was so exhausting that I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I could finish it. But I couldn't go back because I would be by myself in India, and I didn't want to do that. And I couldn't stay where I was. And I had started this task that I didn't think I could finish, and I just had to push forward and do it. And it was really, really amazing for me because it just became such an analogy for life, for academics, for school.
You've come so far, you can't go back because it would be more tedious to go back than to just keep pushing forward.
Yeah. Well, basically, I just was in the middle of this task that I knew I couldn't just not do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of forced to just keep going. And I was, it was a big thing. So I finished it, and we were at the top, and it was really, really incredible to have this experience under my belt and to have this thing that I didn't think I could do. And I completed it by myself, and I got through it alone, and it was such a big thing for me because of my learning disability. I didn't think of things in those terms. I didn't really see too many things in my life that I didn't think I could do, and I just did them anyway and was able to do them. So it became such a life lesson for me to feel like there are things that even if I don't think I can do them, I can. And so things like getting a PhD in psychology, never thought I could do well in school. I never thought I could graduate with a degree. And I never ever would have thought that I could do a graduate program and be successful. And I haven't done that yet. But part of part of my transformation as a person was that now, even though it still feels like something I can't do, I know I can, and I'm still going to go for it, and I'm still going to, you know, do well, and that started with being able, as soon as I got back from India, I took a science class. I was deathly afraid of taking a science class. I thought it was way over my head, and I ended up being at the top of the class in geology, and so, you know, being able to prove to myself over and over again that I'm a capable person, that I can accomplish what I want to do, that I'm not limited by my disability. I just have to find another way to make that happen and to accomplish the same things. And that's the biggest thing that I've told people who are parents of ADHD kids, that like, what would you want to say? Is it's so important for them to realize that they're not less than, and that their brain is different, but it's not detrimental. And that's why it can
be advantageous.
Yeah, it can be advantageous, but it's just something that you have to recognize and account for. And you just may have to find a different way to accomplish what you want to do. And there's a lot of good research happening on how to make that easier, how to understand it better. And it's just so important to drive home the message that no matter what they want to accomplish, ADHD isn't going to be what stops them.
That's great.
It's really important, and they can really accomplish anything they want to next to any other person, and they're not missing something everyone else has. So that was a message that I don't think I got when I was a kid, and it took me years and years to figure that out. And unfortunately, a lot of ADHD people don't have a program like this that helped them find that.
Maybe someone watching this sees it and
maybe
turns them and makes them realize.
That would be amazing.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, but so, you know, it took me this huge journey that, you know, was insane, and helped me in so many other ways too. But a lot of people don't get that, and I think that there is a statistic about ADHD people making less money and doing less important work, because it does create a complex that you can't accomplish things that other people can, and that you can't go for larger goals because you're not going to do well. And so it's just so important for ADHD people to realize that no matter what the goal is, you just have to find your own way to accomplish it, and and you can still do it. So, Courtney,
we have 11 more to go, so we've got some more. Of course, as I said before, this trivia is just a excuse to go off on the tangents like this, which is
right.
Totally,
how did we get to that?
Totally eye-opening.
Yeah.
I had no clue about any of this, and I'm going to go back and watch the Emma Watson UN thing. There's a couple things I need to go back and watch now. You've completely kind of, in a lot of ways, you've opened my eyes to a lot of things. I hope I've done the same.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important about. That's kind of why we do this.
Yeah. I think that's how our show is. Maybe. Yeah, I think that's how we're unique. And every YouTube channel needs to carve out a niche. And I really didn't think about it going in. You can espouse this, that 2 years ago I was not this way. I was a huge firebrand, born, dyed-in-the-wool atheist that was totally against Christians. I was very antagonistic, very confrontational. And now that the show has started, I think I've started learning that building bridges and maybe finding common ground is more important.
Yeah. And
I think even it might be the way to go. And it's not my end goal to plant a seed in Christians to maybe one day become atheists. That's not my goal. You're going to do what you want to do, whatever you want. But I think this might be a way to at least bridge the gap.
Right.
Anyway, but we're definitely going to do a follow-up. That will conclude this. we have some plugs. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, I think in the related videos we have some talks that we gave, some Q&A that were
at the churches.
On this channel, we've got the videos of the churches. We were
that's
asked,
in the playlist under Q&A.
Yeah, we were asked by a couple of churches to come and do just a Ask an Atheist event, and it wasn't a debate. It wasn't a antagonistic conversion or anything.
We had some hostile people show up.
The second one, the second talk we did, but the one, both of them I think were pretty productive.
We've had 4 now, haven't we? 3?
I've only done 2.
There's 3, I think, total. Anyway.
I don't know. But so
there's always at least one antagonistic guy.
Right. But it's the same point again for that talk. Of the point of it was to just establish a mutual understanding, and a lot of people don't know much, if anything, about what atheism actually means and who atheists are and what they think.
Most have never even met an atheist.
Right, and so the point of that talk was just to kind of let people know what the actual position is and what we think. And for me, there was a woman that came up to me after one of the talks that couldn't believe that I was one of the atheists, because I'm this like young female, and she looked at me and she was like, I just couldn't believe it, and for that reason alone, it's beneficial to kind of break the stigmas that people have about what an atheist looks like and who they are and what they think. And so,
if Courtney was not going through a PhD program, just be it known, I've been very adamant about trying to get her on as a permanent co-host. I don't have a permanent co-host yet. I will give you the reason why I don't have a co-host in maybe a later episode. But right now, it would be
maybe them.
Yeah, they're not very. They don't speak a lot.
They're not very conversational.
No. Plugs. Patreon. If you like what we're doing, you want to see the production quality get better, go to patreon.com/atheistedge. If you want to leave a comment and I will answer it on air, go to Twitter @atheistedge or Facebook/atheistedge. What's the one that I... LYFT. If you have never used LYFT before, LYFT is better than Uber. Let me tell you that. I've been an Uber and a Lyft driver for 3 years, and I'll tell you, Lyft is cheaper for passengers. It's better for the drivers. They take care of their customers. They take care of their drivers. If you're new to it, download the Lyft app, LYFT. Under the payment section, put in the promo code ATHEISTEDGE, and you'll get your first ride free. You will get your first ride free.
That's cool.
And what else? That's pretty much
you
it.
Said something about who was that?
I can't remember.
It was a lady.
What?
A lady that's part of the group.
No, Libba. I've already talked about her.
Okay.
Give me that thing real quick. I don't know if I talked about it.
Oh, this thing is cool.
We got our first fan art. This is from Stacy Moore. She's into woodworking, and she did an Atheist Edge little thing for us.
That's cool.
And
it's a razor.
Yes.
Which is really, really neat.
I think
and on the other side, it's a razor as well.
I don't know if I've talked about it, but
more Sweeney Todd version of razors.
That's a very old school
cool.
razor. I think the Atheist Edge, it goes very many levels deep. I think the main one is Occam's razor. Occam's razor is, we've talked about it before, but the simplest explanation tends to be the right one. And that's where we'll go with that. And thank you, and we'll see you next time. I am Jim.
I'm Courtney.
Thanks for watching Atheist Edge.
An unholy thing. unholy thing. An unholy thing. An unholy thing.